I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe it's because the weight of it's been crushing me for years, and I can't carry it alone anymore. Or maybe it's because I need someone, anyone, to believe me, to understand that what happened in that godforsaken hotel wasn't just in my head. It was real, too real, and it's still with me, clawing at the edges of my mind every night when I close my eyes. My name's Daniel. I was 29 when it all went down, back in the fall of 2018. I was a freelance photographer, the kind of guy who'd chase a good shot across state lines if it meant a paycheck. I wasn't into ghost stories or the paranormal. I didn't believe in that stuff. Never had a reason to. But when a travel magazine offered me a gig to shoot the 1886 Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, for a Halloween feature, I didn't think twice. They wanted moody, atmospheric photos of the place, America's most haunted hotel, they called it. I figured it'd be a quick job. Snap some pictures of creaky floorboards and dusty chandeliers. Maybe stage a few spooky shots with fog and shadows. Easy money. I should have known better. The moment I pulled into the hotel's gravel lot, something felt off. The Crescent sits on a hill overlooking this sleepy little town, all Victorian charm and winding streets. From the outside, it's a postcard red brick, white trim, this grand, sprawling relic of a bygone era. But there was a weight to it, like the air around it was thicker, heavier. The kind of heaviness that makes your chest tight, even if you don't know why. I brushed it off as jet lag. I'd driven 8 hours straight from St. Louis, and I was running on gas station coffee and adrenaline. But looking back, I think the place was already sinking its hooks into me. The lobby was a time capsule. Polished wood, velvet curtains, a fireplace that looked like it hadn't been lit in decades. The staff were all smiles, but their eyes had this guarded look, like they were sizing me up. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Clara with a tight bun and a voice like she was reading from a script, handed me the key to room 218. Most requested room in the hotel, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Folks say it's active. I laughed it off, asked if that meant the ghosts would pose for my camera. She didn't laugh back, just said, "Mind the halls at night, Mr. Harper. They're not always empty." I figured she was leaning into the hotel's gimmick. The Crescent's got a reputation, after all. Built in 1886 as a luxury resort, it had a darker chapter in the 1930s when a con man named Norman Baker turned it into a cancer cure hospital. No medical license, no credentials, just a guy promising miracles to desperate people. Patients died in droves, some from his quack treatments, others from neglect. The stories say their spirits never left. Guests report footsteps in the halls, doors slamming on their own, cold spots that make your breath catch. I'd read the TripAdvisor reviews on the drive up. Half the people called it a tourist trap. The other half swore they'd seen things. Shadows, faces, hands reaching out from the dark. I didn't buy it. People see what they want to see. But that first night, God, that first night, I'd spent the day scouting locations, taking test shots in the ballroom, the staircase, the old morgue in the basement. Yeah, the morgue is a selling point for their ghost tours. By the time I got back to room 218, it was past midnight, and I was beat. The room was small, cramped, with a single window overlooking the foggy hills. The bed creaked under my weight, and the air smelled faintly of mildew, like the walls were holding on to something old and sour. I set my camera gear on the desk, plugged in my phone, and tried to sleep. That's when I heard it. A low, rhythmic tapping, like someone knocking softly on the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Steady, deliberate, coming from the direction of the hallway. I sat up, straining to listen. It stopped for a moment, then started again, closer this time, like it was right outside my door. I told myself it was another guest, maybe someone fumbling with their key. But it didn't sound like that. It was too precise, too patient. I got up, heart pounding harder than I'd like to admit, and cracked the door open. The hallway was empty. Just a long stretch of faded red carpet, dim sconces casting shadows that flickered like they had a mind of their own. I stepped out, barefoot, the floor cold against my skin. The air out there was different, heavier, almost damp, like stepping into a basement after a storm. I stood there listening, but the tapping was gone. Nothing but silence, the kind that feels like it's pressing against your eardrums. I went back to my room, locked the door, and told myself I was imagining things. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I brushed it off. Lack of sleep, an old building settling, whatever. I had work to do. I spent the day shooting the hotel's exterior, the gardens, the wraparound porch with its view of the Ozarks. But the whole time, I couldn't shake this feeling of being watched. Not like someone was staring at me, but like the hotel itself was aware of me. Every time I framed a shot, I'd catch something in the corner of my eye, a shadow moving too fast, a flicker of light where there shouldn't be one. My camera started acting up, too. The autofocus would lock onto nothing, just empty air, and half my shots came out blurry, like the lens couldn't decide what it was seeing. That night, I joined one of the ghost tours. Figured it'd be good for the article, plus I was curious. The guide, a guy named Tom with a thick Arkansas drawl, led us through the hotel, spinning stories about Baker's hospital days. He talked about the patients who'd come here hoping for a cure, only to end up on slabs in the morgue. He showed us room 419, where a nurse supposedly still lingers, folding sheets at the foot of the bed. He pointed out the staircase where a woman in white fell, or was pushed to her death. The group ate it up, gasping and giggling, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Tom was holding something back. His eyes kept darting to the shadows, like he was expecting something to step out of them. When we got to the basement, the air changed again. It was colder, sharper, like breathing in a freezer. The morgue was just a small room, concrete walls, a single steel table bolted to the floor. Tom said they used to store bodies there, sometimes for weeks, before families could claim them. He told us about the screaming room, a padded cell where Baker's patients were restrained during his so-called treatments. I took a few shots, but my camera kept glitching, the screen flashing error codes I'd never seen before. One of the other guests, a woman in her 50s, grabbed my arm and whispered, "Did you see that?" I followed her gaze to the corner of the room, but there was nothing there, just darkness. She swore she'd seen a figure, tall and thin, standing by the table. I didn't see it, but I felt it. That same heaviness, like the air was closing in. Back in my room that night, the tapping started again. Louder this time, more insistent. Tap, tap, tap. I tried to ignore it, but it wouldn't stop. I checked the hallway again, nothing. I even knocked on the walls, thinking maybe it was pipes or a loose board. But the sound wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from inside the room, somewhere near the desk where I'd left my camera. I turned on every light, checked every corner. Nothing. Just that relentless tapping, like someone or something was trying to get my attention. I don't know when I started talking to it. I was exhausted, frayed, and yeah, maybe a little scared. "What do you want?" I whispered, feeling like an idiot. The tapping stopped. For a moment, the room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Then, From the corner by the window, a voice. Not out loud, not like someone standing there, but inside my head, clear as day. Look closer. I froze. My mouth went dry, and my hands started shaking. I told myself it was my imagination, that I was just tired. But I couldn't stop myself from picking up my camera. I flipped through the photos from the day, the ones I'd taken in the morgue. Most of them were blurry, useless. But one was different. It was a shot of the steel table, the one I'd taken when the woman grabbed my arm. In the corner of the frame, there was something. A shape, tall and thin, just like she'd described. It wasn't clear, not like a person, but it wasn't a shadow either. It was wrong, like it didn't belong in the light. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the bed, camera in my lap, staring at that photo until the battery died. The tapping didn't come back, but the room felt alive, like it was watching me, waiting for me to do something. I didn't know what, but I knew I couldn't leave. Not yet. The hotel had something to show me, and it wasn't done with me. I don't know how long I sat there that night, staring at the dead screen of my camera. The photo was burned into my mind. That blurry, impossible shape in the corner of the morgue. I kept telling myself it was a trick of the light, a smudge on the lens, anything but what it felt like. But the voice in my head, that whisper telling me to look closer, it wasn't something I could explain away. It wasn't just in my head. It was in the room with me, in the walls, in the air. The Crescent Hotel wasn't just a building. It was awake, and it knew I was here. By morning, I was a wreck. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I needed coffee, answers, something to ground me. I packed up my gear and headed to the dining room, hoping a crowd would shake off the dread clinging to me. The room was half empty, just a few early risers picking at their breakfasts. The chandeliers overhead cast long, jagged shadows across the tables, and the windows let in a gray, watery light that made everything feel like it was underwater. I grabbed a coffee and sat near the back, trying to blend in, but I couldn't shake the feeling that every pair of eyes in the room was on me. That's when I met her. She slid into the chair across from me without asking. A woman in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, with sharp green eyes and a tangle of dark hair pulled back messily. She introduced herself as Lena, a writer working on a book about the hotel's history. "You're the photographer, right?" she said, her voice low, like she didn't want anyone else to hear. "I saw you on the ghost tour last night. You looked like you saw something. I didn't want to talk about it. I barely wanted to think about it. But there was something about her, something hungry, like she was chasing the same thing I was starting to feel." I told her about the tapping, the voice, the photo. Her eyes lit up, not with excitement, but with this grim kind of recognition. "You're not the first," she said. "This place, it gets inside you, picks people, and it doesn't let go." She told me about Norman Baker, the man who turned the Crescent into a house of horrors. I'd heard the basics from the ghost tour, but Lena knew details that made my skin crawl. Baker wasn't just a con man. He was a predator. He'd lure cancer patients with promises of a miracle cure. Some elixir he claimed could dissolve tumors. Instead, he pumped them full of chemicals, locked them in rooms to scream through the pain, and pocketed their life savings. The lucky ones died quickly. The unlucky ones lingered, strapped to beds or left to rot in the basement. Lena said there were records, letters, journals, even a few photographs that never made it into the history books. "The hotel keeps them," she said. "In the walls, in the floors. It doesn't let go of anything." I didn't know whether to believe her, She sounded like she'd been here too long, like the hotel had gotten to her, too. But when she offered to show me something, I didn't say no. Couldn't. That whisper from the night before was still echoing in my head, and I needed to know what it wanted me to see. Lena led me to the 4th floor, to a room that wasn't on the ghost tour's itinerary. Room 426. The hallway up there was narrower than the others, the air stale and thick with dust. The door was unmarked, just a plain wooden slab with a rusted lock. Lena pulled out a key, one she shouldn't have had, and let us in. The room was small, barely bigger than a closet, with a single bed frame, no mattress, and a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing patches of mold that looked like they were crawling up from the floor. This was one of Baker's treatment rooms, she said. They didn't clean it out. Not really. She pointed to the mirror. Look in it. Not at yourself. At the room. I didn't want to. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to leave, to get out of that room and never come back. But I stepped closer, my reflection pale and hollow-eyed in the glass. First, I didn't see anything. Just the bed frame, the wallpaper, the dust. Then the light shifted, or maybe it was my eyes playing tricks, and I saw it. A shadow, faint but unmistakable, standing behind me. Not Lena, something else. Taller, thinner, its edges smudged like smoke. I spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing there. Just Lena, watching me with that same grim look. You saw it, didn't you? She said. I didn't answer. Couldn't. My mouth felt like it was full of ash. She didn't push me, just nodded and said, It's not just ghosts. It's the hotel. It remembers everything. And it wants you to remember, too. I left room 426 feeling like I'd been gutted. My camera felt heavier in my hands, like it was carrying something I couldn't see. I went back to my room and tried to work, editing photos, writing notes for the magazine, but I couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shadow in the mirror. Every time I opened my laptop, I half expected that photo from the morgue to pop up, unprompted. The tapping started again that afternoon, softer now, but constant, like a heartbeat in the walls. I tried to ignore it, but it was like the hotel was whispering to me, daring me to dig deeper. That night, I couldn't stay in my room. The air was too thick, the silence too loud. I grabbed my camera and wandered the halls, telling myself I was just looking for shots. The truth was, I didn't know what I was looking for. Answers, maybe, or proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The hallways were endless, all red carpet and flickering lights, doors that creaked even when no one touched them. I kept my camera up, snapping photos blindly, hoping to catch something, anything, that would make sense of what I was feeling. On the 3rd floor, I found a door that wasn't there before. I know that sounds insane, but I'd walked that hall a dozen times, and I'd never seen it. It was tucked into a corner, half hidden by a shadow that didn't match the light. The door was old, warped, with a brass knob that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I reached for it, my hand shaking, and the moment my fingers brushed the metal, the tapping stopped. The silence was worse. It was like the whole hotel was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do. I turned the knob. The door opened with a groan, revealing a staircase leading down. Not up like you'd expect on the 3rd floor. Down. Into darkness so thick it felt like it was swallowing the light from my phone. I should have turned back. Every rational part of me was screaming to get out, to check out of the hotel and never look back. But that whisper was back, louder now, not in my head but in the air, curling around me like smoke. Look closer. I went down, The staircase was narrow, the steps uneven, like they'd been carved by someone who didn't care about safety. The air got colder with every step, and the smell, God, the smell. It was like antiseptic and rot, like a hospital left to decay. My phone's flashlight barely cut through the dark, and my camera kept glitching, the screen flickering like it was trying to warn me. At the bottom, there was another door, this one steel, like the kind you'd find in a bunker. It was ajar, just enough to let out a sliver of pale, sickly light. I pushed it open and stepped into a room that shouldn't exist. It was long and low, with concrete walls stained dark with something I didn't want to think about. There were tables, not like the one in the morgue, but worse. Rusted, with straps hanging off the sides, stained with things that looked too much like blood. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with glass bottles, some broken, some still filled with liquids I couldn't identify. In the center of the room was a chair, bolted to the floor, with leather restraints so worn they looked like they'd been used until they frayed. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, my camera dangling from my neck. The air was so heavy it felt like it was pressing me into the ground. And then I heard it. Not tapping, but a sound like breathing, shallow and ragged, coming from the far end of the room. I turned my flashlight, and there, in the corner, was a figure. Not a shadow this time, but a person or something that used to be. It was hunched over, its back to me, its limbs too long, too thin, moving in a way that wasn't right, like a puppet with half its strings cut. It didn't turn around, but I felt it see me, like its gaze was boring into my skull. I ran. I don't remember how I got back to the staircase, how I made it to my room. I just remember locking the door, shoving the desk against it, and sitting on the bed, clutching my camera like it was the only thing keeping me sane. The tapping didn't start again that night, but the silence was worse. It was like the hotel was waiting, biding its time, knowing I couldn't escape what I'd seen. The next morning, I tried to find the door again. I walked every inch of the third floor, checked every corner. It was gone. Not locked, not hidden, gone. Like it had never been there. I asked Clara at the front desk about it, but she just gave me that same tight smile and said, "Old buildings play tricks, Mr. Harper. Maybe you got turned around." But her hands were shaking when she handed me my receipt, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't tell Lena about the room. Couldn't. Every time I tried to form the words, my throat closed up, like the hotel was stopping me. But I showed her the photos I'd taken that night in the halls. Most of them were black, like the camera had refused to see. But one, a single shot from the moment I opened that steel door, showed something. Not the room, not the figure, but a face. Pale, eyeless, pressed against the lens like it was trying to break through. Lena dropped the camera when she saw it. She didn't say anything, just grabbed her bag and left, muttering something about needing to finish her book somewhere else. I should have left with her. I should have packed my bags, gotten in my car, and driven until the Crescent was just a speck in my rearview mirror. But I couldn't. The hotel had me now, and it wasn't letting go. That whisper was louder now, not just in my head, but in every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights. Look closer. And God help me, I did. I don't know how I kept going after that night. Any sane person would have left, grabbed their keys, floored it out of Eureka Springs, and never looked back. But I didn't, couldn't. The Crescent had its claws in me, deep, and every time I thought about leaving, that whisper came back, slithering through my mind. Look closer. It wasn't just a voice anymore. It was a pull, like a current dragging me under. The hotel wasn't done with me, and I was starting to think I wasn't done with it either. By the third day, I was barely sleeping. My eyes were bloodshot, my hands jittery from too much coffee and not enough food. I stopped going to the dining room, couldn't stand the way the other guests looked at me, like they knew something I didn't. Instead, I spent my time wandering the halls, my camera slung around my neck like a lifeline. I wasn't even sure what I was shooting anymore. The photos were useless, half of them black, the other half streaked with shapes that made my stomach turn. Faces in the corners, hands pressed against windows, things that didn't belong in the frame. I stopped looking at them, but I couldn't stop taking them. I kept thinking about that room, the one that shouldn't exist. The steel door, the straps on the tables, the figure in the corner. I'd gone back to the third floor a dozen times, running my hands along the walls, looking for any sign of that door. Nothing. It was like the hotel had swallowed it whole. I started to wonder if I'd imagined it, if the lack of sleep and the constant tapping in my head were driving me crazy. But then I'd remember the photo, the one Lena saw, the one with the eyeless face, and I knew it was real. Too real. I started talking to the staff, anyone who'd listen. Most of them brushed me off, feeding me the same canned lines about old buildings and overactive imaginations. But one guy, a maintenance worker named Ray, seemed different. He was older, maybe 60, with a face like weathered leather and eyes that didn't quite focus. I caught him in the basement, fixing a leaking pipe near the morgue. I don't know why I told him. Maybe because he looked like he'd seen things, too. I told him about the tapping, the voice, the room. He didn't laugh, didn't call me crazy. He just stopped working, wiped his hands on his overalls, and looked at me like I was a dead man walking. "You shouldn't have gone down there," he said, his voice low, like he was afraid the walls were listening. "Some doors ain't meant to be opened. Not here." He told me about the hotel's hidden places, rooms and passages sealed off after Baker's time, places where the worst things happened. He said the staff knew about them, but no one talked. "You don't work here long without feeling it," he said. "The weight, like the whole place is holding its breath, waiting for you to slip up." I asked him about the figure I'd seen, the one in the corner of that impossible room. His face went pale and he shook his head. "Don't go looking for it," he said. "It's already found you." That night, I couldn't stay in my room. The tapping was back, louder than ever, like someone was hammering nails into the walls. I grabbed my camera and went back to the third floor, driven by something I couldn't name. I didn't expect to find the door again, but I had to try. I walked the hallway, my flashlight cutting through the dark, until I saw it. The same warped wooden door, tucked into the same shadowed corner. It was real. I hadn't imagined it. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the knob, but I did, and the staircase was there, descending into that same choking darkness. This time I was ready, or at least I thought I was. I brought a flashlight, a spare battery, even a pocket knife, like that would do any good. The air was colder than before, the smell of antiseptic and rot so strong it made my eyes water. I moved slowly, each step echoing like a gunshot. At the bottom, the steel door was open, that sickly light spilling out, brighter now, almost pulsing. I stepped inside, and the room was different. The tables were still there, the straps, the bottles, but the chair in the center, the one with the restraints, was gone. In its place was a mirror, tall and warped, like the one in room 426 but bigger, its surface cloudy and streaked with something dark. I don't know why I approached it. I didn't want to. My legs moved like they belonged to someone else, dragging me closer until I was staring into the glass. My reflection was wrong. Too pale, too thin, my eyes sunken like I hadn't slept in years. But it wasn't just me in the mirror. There were others. Shapes, figures, crowding behind me, their faces blurred but their eyes sharp, watching. I turned, expecting to see them, but the room was empty, just me and the mirror. When I looked back, they were still there, closer now, their hands reaching out, fingers brushing the glass like they were trying to break through. I heard the breathing again, that shallow, ragged sound coming from the corner. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. The figure was there, same as before, hunched and twitching, its limbs bending at angles that made my stomach lurch. It didn't turn, but I felt it watching me, its presence like a weight on my chest. And then it spoke. Not out loud, but in my head, the same voice as before, only louder, sharper, cutting through me like a blade. You see now. I stumbled back, my flashlight slipping from my hand, plunging the room into that sickly light. The figures in the mirror were moving now, pressing against the glass, their faces twisting, mouths opening in silent screams. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The voice was everywhere, filling the room, filling me. You're part of it now. I don't know how I got out. I remember falling, crawling up the stairs, the door slamming behind me. I was back in the hallway, gasping, my camera gone, my flashlight gone, my knife gone. The door was gone too, like it had never been there. I didn't go back to my room. Couldn't. I spent the rest of the night in the lobby, curled up in a chair, jumping at every creak and shadow. When morning came, I tried to check out, but Clara just smiled that same tight smile and said my bill was already paid. By who? I asked, my voice cracking. She didn't answer, just handed me a key. A different one, not for room 218. It was for room 426, the treatment room Lena had shown me. You left something behind, she said. I didn't want to go, but I had to know. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The hallway was empty, the air so thick it felt like wading through water. When I opened the door to 426, the room was different. The bed frame was gone, the wallpaper gone, the mirror gone. In their place was a single table, like the ones in the hidden room, with straps dangling from the sides. And on the table, my camera. I grabbed it, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold it. The screen was cracked, but it turned on, and there was a new photo, one I didn't remember taking. It was me, standing in that hidden room, staring into the mirror. But in the reflection, I wasn't alone. There was a man behind me, tall and thin, his face pale and eyeless, his hand on my shoulder. And written across the bottom of the photo, in jagged, uneven letters, were 2 words, "You're his." I don't remember leaving the hotel. I don't remember the drive home. The next clear memory I have is sitting in my apartment in St. Louis, the camera on my kitchen table, the photo still on the screen. I tried to delete it, but it wouldn't go away. I smashed the camera, burned the memory card, but it didn't matter. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The room, the mirror, the figure. And I heard the voice over and over, "You're his." I started digging after that. I couldn't stop myself. I found old records, newspaper clippings, things Lena had mentioned but never shown me. Norman Baker didn't just kill his patients. He marked them, branded them with his initials, NB, carved into their skin like a signature. The ones who survived his treatments, the ones who lingered, they all talked about a man who wasn't Baker. A doctor, they called him, but not like any doctor they'd ever seen. Tall, thin, with eyes that weren't there. They said he was always watching, always waiting, like he was part of the hotel itself. I checked my shoulder one night in the bathroom mirror, half expecting to see those initials. There was nothing there, not on my skin. But I felt it, a weight, like a hand resting there, cold and heavy. I don't sleep much anymore. The tapping follows me, even in my apartment, faint but always there. My photos, the ones I took for the magazine, never made it to print. The files were corrupted, every single one, except for that one photo, the one I didn't take. I keep it in a drawer, hidden, but I know it's there. I know he's there. The Crescent Hotel is still open. People still check in, take the ghost tours, laugh about the haunted halls. They don't know. They don't see. But I do. I see him in every shadow, every reflection. I hear him in every tap, every creak. I was just a photographer, just a guy doing a job. But the hotel chose me, and it doesn't let go. I'm his now, and I'll never be free. So here I am, telling you this because I need you to understand. If you ever go to the Crescent, if you ever feel that weight, hear that whisper, see that door where it shouldn't be, run. Don't look closer. Don't open it. Because once you do, it's not just a story anymore. It's you. It's your reflection in the mirror, your face in the photo, your name carved into the walls. And he's waiting.